The bustling city streets were filled with the usual chaos of a weekday morning. People rushed by, their eyes fixed on their smartphones or the ground, barely acknowledging the world around them. Amidst this sea of hurried individuals sat Ethan, a figure that seemed out of place yet paradoxically invisible to those passing by. Ethan's appearance was carefully crafted to blend in with the city's less fortunate. His clothes were worn and tattered, his hair unkempt, and his face weathered by what appeared to be years of hard living on the streets. He sat on a park bench, observing the world that seemed to have forgotten him. As the day progressed, Ethan watched countless people walk by. Some averted their eyes, pretending not to see him. Others quickened their pace, clutching their belongings a little tighter as they passed. A few spared him a glance of pity, but continued on their way without stopping. The sun was beginning to set when Leon appeared. Unlike the others, Leon's pace slowed as he approached the bench. He was a tall, lean man with dark skin and kind eyes that seemed to carry the weight of his own struggles. Leon's clothes, while clean, were clearly well worn, and his lunch bag looked small for a man of his size. Leon hesitated for a moment, his eyes moving from Ethan to his lunch bag and back again. In that instant, a battle seemed to wage within him, the instinct for self-preservation against the desire to help another human being in need. Compassion won out. Leon approached Ethan, his steps slow but purposeful. "Excuse me, sir," he said, his voice soft but clear. "Would you like something to eat?" Ethan looked up, surprise evident in his eyes. It had been days since anyone had spoken to him directly, let alone offered assistance. He nodded, unable to find words in the face of this unexpected kindness. Leon sat down on the bench, leaving a respectful distance between them. He opened his lunch bag and pulled out a sandwich, offering half to Ethan. "It's not much," Leon said apologetically, "but I hope it helps." Ethan accepted the food with trembling hands. "Thank you," he murmured, his voice rough from disuse. He took a bite, savoring the simple meal as if it were a gourmet dish. As they sat in silence, Leon couldn't help but wonder about the man beside him. What circumstances had led him to this bench? What stories did he have to tell? But he didn't pry, respecting the dignity of the stranger he was helping. For his part, Ethan was overwhelmed by the simple act of kindness. In his weeks of living on the streets, he had experienced firsthand the indifference and sometimes cruelty of society. Leon's generosity stood out like a beacon in the darkness. As they finished eating, Leon reached into his pocket and pulled out a few dollars. "I wish I could do more," he said, pressing the money into Ethan's hand. "Take care of yourself, all right?" Ethan nodded, clutching the money as if it were a lifeline. "Thank you," he said again, his voice thick with emotion. "You don't know what this means." Leon smiled, a warmth in his eyes that seemed to brighten the growing twilight. "We all need a little help sometimes," he said. "Maybe someday you'll be in a position to help someone else." As Leon stood to leave, Ethan felt a surge of guilt. He knew the truth, that he was not truly in need, that his appearance was a carefully constructed lie. But in that moment, he also knew that he had found something genuine and rare, a person whose kindness extended beyond social status or appearance. Leon's act of generosity had touched something deep within Ethan, reminding him of the person he used to be before wealth and success had changed his perspective. As he watched Leon walk away, Ethan made a decision that would change both their lives forever. As Leon started to walk away, Ethan felt a sudden urgency. He couldn't let this moment pass. "Wait," he called out, his voice stronger now. Leon turned, surprise evident on his face. Ethan stood up, his posture straightening as he shed the demeanor of a homeless man. "I need to tell you something," he said, his tone shifting to one of clarity and confidence. "My name is Ethan Blackwood, and I'm not who I appear to be." Leon's expression changed from surprise to confusion. "What do you mean?" he asked, taking a step back. Ethan took a deep breath. I'm a millionaire, he said plainly. This appearance, this situation, it's all been an experiment. Leon's face cycled through a range of emotions: disbelief, anger, confusion. An experiment? He repeated, his voice rising. What kind of sick game is this? Ethan held up his hands in a placating gesture. It's not a game, he said earnestly. I wanted to understand how people treat those they perceive as less fortunate. I've been sitting here for weeks and you're the first person who showed genuine kindness. Leon shook his head, struggling to process this information. So, you've been pretending to be homeless? Do you have any idea how insulting that is to people who actually struggle every day? Ethan's face fell. You're right, he admitted. I didn't consider the full implications of my actions, but your kindness, it's changed something in me. I want to make it right. Leon scoffed. Make it right? How? By throwing money at the problem? Ethan paused, considering his next words carefully. Not exactly, he said. I want to change your life, Leon. I want to give you the opportunity to never have to worry about choosing between helping others and taking care of yourself. Leon's eyes narrowed. What are you talking about? I want to give you a fortune, Ethan said simply. Enough money to secure your future and help others in a meaningful way. Leon laughed, but there was no humor in it. Right. And I'm supposed to believe that? A millionaire just happens to decide to give away his money to a random stranger? Ethan pulled out his phone, tapped a few buttons, and showed the screen to Leon. It displayed a bank account with a balance that made Leon's eyes widen. This is real, Ethan said softly. And I'm serious about my offer. Leon took a step back, his mind reeling. This is crazy, he muttered. Why me? Why now? Ethan's expression softened. Because you showed compassion when no one else did. You gave when you had little to give. That kind of generosity is rare, Leon. It deserves to be rewarded. Leon shook his head, overwhelmed. I can't accept this, he said. It's too much. I don't even know you. Ethan nodded, understanding the hesitation. I know it's a lot to take in, he said. But think about what you could do with this opportunity, the lives you could change, the people you could help. Leon's thoughts raced. Images flashed through his mind, paying off his debts, helping his family, supporting his community. But with those images came fears of losing touch with his roots, of becoming someone he didn't recognize, of the responsibilities that would come with such wealth. I need time to think, Leon said, his voice shaky. Ethan nodded. Of course, he said, pulling out a business card. Take all the time you need. When you're ready, call this number. We'll talk more. Answer all your questions. No pressure, no strings attached. Leon took the card hesitantly, as if it might burn him. This is insane, he muttered. Ethan smiled softly. Sometimes life takes unexpected turns, he said. But I believe this could be the start of something incredible for both of us. As Leon walked away, his mind swirling with possibilities and fears, Ethan watched him go. He knew that regardless of Leon's decision, his own life had already been transformed by this encounter. The experiment that had started as a way to understand society had become a journey of self-discovery, reminding him of the values he'd lost sight of in his pursuit of wealth. The city continued to bustle around them, unaware of the life-altering exchange that had just taken place. As night fell, both men left the park, each grappling with the implications of their unexpected encounter and the potential for transformation that lay ahead. Days after his encounter with Ethan, Leon found himself standing outside his modest apartment building, key in hand, hesitating. He had spent countless hours contemplating Ethan's offer, and finally, after numerous meetings and discussions, he had accepted. The The weight of the decision pressed heavily on his shoulders as he entered his home. The apartment was small but tidy, filled with second-hand furniture and family photos. As Leon stepped inside, his sister Maya emerged from the kitchen, her face lighting up at the sight of him. "Leon, you're home early," Maya said, wiping her hands on a dish towel. Her smile faltered as she noticed the tension in her brother's posture. "Is everything okay?" Leon took a deep breath. "Maya, we need to talk. Something big has happened." Over the next hour, Leon recounted his encounter with Ethan and the life-changing offer he had accepted. Maya listened intently, her expressions shifting from disbelief to concern to excitement. "This is incredible, Leon," Maya exclaimed when he finished. "Think of all the good we could do for our community. We could start that after-school program we've always talked about, or renovate the community center." Leon shifted uncomfortably. "I was thinking we could move to a better neighborhood first. Maybe buy a house with a yard. You could finally quit that second job you hate." Maya's enthusiasm dimmed. "Move? But what about our friends here? The people who've supported us through everything?" "We can still help them," Leon argued. "But don't we deserve a chance at a better life too, after all we've been through?" Maya stood up, pacing the small living room. "Of course we do, but Leon, this money, it's a responsibility. We have a chance to make a real difference." Leon felt a flicker of irritation. "And we will. But we don't have to solve every problem overnight. I want to enjoy this too, Maya. Is that so wrong?" Maya turned to face him, her expression softening. "No, it's not wrong. I'm worried. This is a lot of change very quickly. I don't want us to lose sight of who we are." Leon sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I'm still me, Maya, just with more resources now. Think of all the opportunities we'll have." "Opportunities for what?" Maya challenged. "To forget where we came from? To ignore the struggles of people just like us?" Leon stood up, frustration evident in his voice. "That's not fair. I've worked hard my whole life. Don't I deserve a chance to relax? To not worry about bills for once?" Maya's voice rose to match his. "Of course you do. But there's a difference between being comfortable and forgetting your roots. We have a responsibility to our community." "I didn't ask for this responsibility," Leon snapped. "It was given to me, and I'm trying to figure out how to handle it." Maya stepped back, hurt flashing in her eyes. "Maybe that's the problem. You're seeing it as a burden instead of a blessing." A tense silence fell between them. Leon looked around the apartment, at the worn furniture and the patches on the walls where paint was peeling. "I just want better for us, Maya. For you. Is that so hard to understand?" Maya's expression softened slightly. "I do understand, Leon. But better doesn't always mean bigger or more expensive. It can mean making a difference, leaving a legacy." Leon sank back onto the couch, the weight of the situation pressing down on him. "I don't know how to balance it all," he admitted quietly. Maya sat beside him, placing a hand on his arm. "That's why we need to do this together. We've always been a team, remember?" Leon nodded, but the tension didn't leave his body. "I hear you, Maya. I do. But I need some time to process all of this. To enjoy it a little, you know?" Maya withdrew her hand, a small frown creasing her brow. "Just don't take too long, Leon. Opportunities like this don't come often, and the need in our community isn't going away." As Maya retreated to her room, Leon sat in the dimming light of their small living room. The excitement of his newfound wealth was now tempered by the weight of expectations, his own, Maya's, and those of a community he wasn't sure he was ready to shoulder. Outside, the sounds of their neighborhood continued. Children playing, cars honking, music drifting from open windows. It was the soundtrack of a life Leon had always known, but now felt strangely distant from. As night fell, He remained on the couch, caught between the allure of a new life and the pull of his roots, unsure of which path to choose. As news of Ethan's generous act began to circulate in certain circles, it wasn't long before it caught the attention of those from his past. One sunny afternoon, as Ethan sat in a high-end cafe, a familiar voice called out his name. "Ethan Blackwood, as I live and breathe." Ethan looked up to see Vanessa Sinclair, a woman he hadn't encountered in years. She was as polished and poised as ever, her designer outfit and perfectly coiffed hair a stark contrast to the disheveled appearance he had maintained for weeks. "Vanessa," Ethan responded, his tone neutral. "It's been a while." Vanessa slid into the seat across from him, uninvited. "Oh, darling, it's been far too long. I heard the most fascinating rumor about you. Something about a social experiment?" Ethan's guard immediately went up. "News travels fast, I see." Vanessa leaned in, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "Always does in our circles. But tell me, what possessed you to do such a thing? And who is this lucky individual you've bestowed your fortune upon?" Ethan carefully measured his response. "It's not about luck, Vanessa. It's about recognizing genuine kindness." Vanessa's laugh was light, but held a sharp edge. "Oh, Ethan, always the idealist. But surely you must see the opportunity here. This man, what was his name? Leon? He must be so grateful." The implication in her tone made Ethan's jaw tighten. "Leon is a good man who showed compassion when no one else did. That's all there is to it." Vanessa's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Of course, darling, but you must introduce us. I'm sure he could use some guidance in navigating his new world." Across town, Leon was experiencing his first taste of that new world. He sat in a sleek office, facing Chuck Baxter, a man introduced to him as Ethan's former business partner. Chuck leaned back in his leather chair, eyeing Leon with a mixture of curiosity and calculation. "So, you're the man Ethan chose. Interesting." Leon shifted uncomfortably. "Mr. Blackwood saw something in me, I guess." Chuck's laugh was short and sharp. "Ethan always did have a flair for the dramatic. But tell me, Leon, do you really think you're equipped to handle this kind of wealth, this kind of responsibility?" Leon felt a flicker of doubt, remembering his argument with Maya. "I'm learning," he said defensively. Chuck nodded, a sympathetic expression crossing his face. Of course. It's a lot to take in. But you know, there are people who could help you. People with experience in these matters." As Chuck spoke, Leon couldn't shake the feeling that he was being sized up, evaluated for some purpose he couldn't quite grasp. Meanwhile, Vanessa had managed to wrangle Ethan's phone number for Leon out of him. Later that evening, she made the call. "Leon, this is Vanessa Sinclair, a dear friend of Ethan's. I hope you don't mind him giving me your number. I just wanted to welcome you to our little circle." Leon, still reeling from his meeting with Chuck, found himself caught off guard. "Oh, thank you, Ms. Sinclair." Vanessa's voice was honey-sweet. "Please call me Vanessa. Listen, I know this must all be overwhelming for you. Why don't we meet for lunch tomorrow? I could give you some insights into this new world you've entered." As Leon hesitantly agreed, he couldn't shake a growing sense of unease. The world he had entered was proving to be far more complex than he had anticipated. Unbeknownst to Leon, Chuck was making his own moves. In a dimly lit bar across town, he met with an old acquaintance, a private investigator known for his discretion and lack of ethics. "I need everything you can find on Leon," Chuck instructed, sliding an envelope across the table. "And I mean everything. There's got to be something in his past we can use." As night fell over the city, the various players in this unfolding drama retired to their respective homes. Ethan, troubled by Vanessa's sudden reappearance, found himself questioning his decision to thrust Leon into this world. Vanessa plotted her next move, seeing Leon as a potential pawn in a game only she fully understood. Chuck, driven by a mixture of greed and resentment, set in motion plans to regain what he saw as his rightful place in Ethan's empire. And Leon, oblivious to the machinations swirling around him, lay awake in his bed, the weight of his newfound wealth pressing down on him like a physical force. As he drifted off to an uneasy sleep, he couldn't shake the feeling that his life had become a complex game, one he wasn't sure he knew how to play. The following weeks saw Leon navigating his new life with increasing uncertainty. His lunch with Vanessa had left him with a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. Her charm was undeniable, but her words seemed carefully chosen, each one planting a seed of doubt in Leon's mind. "You know, Leon," Vanessa had said, sipping her champagne, "it's admirable what Ethan's done for you. But between us, don't you find it a bit odd? I mean, why you, out of all the people in this city?" Leon had shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "He said it was because of my kindness." Vanessa's laugh was light but pointed. "Oh, darling, kindness is lovely, but in our world, everything comes with a price. I just hope you're prepared for what Ethan might expect in return." These words echoed in Leon's mind as he made his way to meet Ethan at a local park, the same one where they had first met. As he approached, he saw Ethan sitting on a bench, looking more like his true self now, but with a thoughtful expression that made Leon hesitate. "Leon," Ethan greeted him with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "How are you settling in?" Leon sat down, leaving a noticeable gap between them. "It's different," he said carefully. "I've been meeting some interesting people." Ethan's expression tightened almost imperceptibly. "Oh? Anyone in particular?" "Well, your friend Vanessa for one," Leon said, watching Ethan's reaction closely. "And I had a meeting with Chuck Baxter, your former business partner, right?" Ethan's posture stiffened. "Leon, I hope you understand that not everyone you meet will have your best interests at heart. Vanessa and Chuck, they have their own agendas." Leon felt a flare of indignation. "And you don't? You gave me a fortune out of nowhere, Ethan. What's your agenda?" The words hung in the air between them, heavy with accusation. Ethan looked genuinely hurt. "I thought I'd made my intentions clear. I wanted to reward your kindness, to give you an opportunity." "An opportunity for what?" Leon interrupted, Vanessa's words ringing in his ears. "To be your charity case? Your good deed?" Ethan stood up, frustration evident in his voice. "Is that really what you think? After everything?" Leon stood too, the distance between them feeling both physical and emotional. "I don't know what to think anymore. Everyone seems to have an opinion about why you chose me, what I should do, who I should be, but nobody's asking what I want." "And what do you want, Leon?" Ethan asked, his voice softening. Leon ran a hand through his hair, the weight of the past weeks crashing down on him. "I don't know," he admitted. "I thought this would make everything better, but it's just made everything more complicated. My sister thinks I'm losing touch with our roots. Your friends look at me like I'm some kind of imposter. And you," he trailed off, unable to articulate the mix of gratitude and resentment he felt towards Ethan. Ethan took a step forward, reaching out, but Leon stepped back. "Leon, I never meant for this to complicate your life. I thought I was helping." "Maybe that's the problem," Leon said quietly. "You thought you knew what was best for me without really knowing me at all." The silence that followed was deafening. Around them, the park continued its daily rhythms. Children playing, joggers passing by, all oblivious to the emotional chasm growing between the two men. Finally, Ethan spoke, his voice heavy with regret. "I'm sorry, Leon. You're right. I acted impulsively, thinking I could change your life for the better. but I never considered the full implications of what I was doing." Leon nodded, a mix of emotions playing across his face. "I appreciate your apology, Ethan, but I think I need some time to figure out what I want, who I am in all of this." Ethan's shoulders sagged, but he nodded in understanding. "Of course. Take all the time you need. Just be careful, Leon. Not everyone in this new world of yours has your best interests at heart." As Leon turned to leave, Ethan called out one last time, "For what it's worth, I do consider you a friend, Leon. I hope that in time, you might feel the same." Leon paused but didn't turn back. He continued walking, leaving Ethan alone on the bench where their unlikely friendship had begun. As he made his way home, Leon felt a profound sense of loss, not just for the simple life he'd left behind, but for the uncomplicated friendship he'd thought he'd found in Ethan. The sun was setting as Leon reached his apartment building, casting long shadows that seemed to mirror the doubts and fears stretching out before him. He knew that the decisions he made in the coming days would shape not just his future, but the future of those around him. As he climbed the stairs to face another tense evening with Maya, Leon couldn't shake the feeling that something valuable had been lost in his pursuit of a better life, and he wasn't sure if he could ever get it back. In the days following his confrontation with Ethan, Leon found himself in a state of emotional turmoil. The weight of his newfound wealth, once exhilarating, now felt like a burden. He spent hours wandering the streets of his old neighborhood, seeing it with new eyes: the crumbling infrastructure, the struggling businesses, the tired faces of people working multiple jobs just to get by. It was during one of these walks that Leon's sister Maya caught up with him. Her face was alight with an excitement he hadn't seen in weeks. "Leon, I've been looking everywhere for you," she said, slightly out of breath. "I have an idea and I need your help." Leon raised an eyebrow, curious despite his melancholy. "What kind of idea?" Maya linked her arm through his, guiding him towards the community center. "I've been talking to some of the folks at the center. We've come up with a plan for a neighborhood revitalization project. It's ambitious, but with your resources, we could really make a difference." As they walked, Maya outlined her vision: renovating the community center, starting job training programs, providing microloans to local businesses. Leon listened, feeling a spark of the old enthusiasm he'd felt when he first received Ethan's gift. "It sounds amazing, Maya," Leon said as they reached the community center. "But I don't know. After everything that's happened, I'm not sure I'm the right person to lead something like this." Maya stopped, turning to face her brother. "Leon, that's exactly why you are the right person. You understand both worlds now. You know what it's like to struggle, and you know what it's like to have means. Who better to bridge that gap?" Before Leon could respond, a familiar voice called out, "Maya? Leon?" What a pleasant surprise. They turned to see Ethan approaching, looking slightly out of place in his expensive suit. Leon tensed, but Maya's face lit up. "Mr. Blackwood, I'm so glad you're here. I was just telling Leon about our community project idea." Ethan's eyes darted between the siblings. "A community project? That sounds intriguing. I'd love to hear more about it." For the next hour, the three of them sat in the worn-out community center, discussing Maya's plans. As she spoke, Leon saw a change come over Ethan. The polished businessman facade faded, replaced by genuine interest and excitement. "This is exactly the kind of initiative I hope to see," Ethan said when Maya finished. "Leon, you have an incredible opportunity here to make a real difference." Leon felt a mix of emotions: pride in his sister's vision, lingering resentment towards Ethan, and a growing sense of purpose. "It's not going to be easy," he said cautiously. "There's a lot of distrust in the community towards outsiders with money." Ethan nodded thoughtfully. "That's where you come in, Leon. You're not an outsider. You're one of them. With With your connection to the community and the resources I've provided, you could be the bridge this neighborhood needs." Maya squeezed Leon's arm encouragingly. "He's right, Leon. This is what you were meant to do with this gift." Leon looked around the community center, memories flooding back. After-school programs he'd attended as a kid, job fairs that had helped him get his first job, community meetings where neighbors came together to support each other through tough times. "Okay," he said finally, a new determination in his voice. "Let's do it. But we do it right. We involve the community every step of the way. This isn't about us swooping in to save anyone. It's about empowering people to build the neighborhood they deserve." Ethan smiled, extending his hand to Leon. "I couldn't agree more. Partners?" Leon hesitated for a moment, then shook Ethan's hand. Partners, but on equal footing this time. As they left the community center, plans already forming, Leon felt a weight lift from his shoulders. For the first time since receiving Ethan's gift, he felt like he was on the right path, but as they walked down the street, none of them noticed the sleek car parked across the road, its tinted windows hiding the figure of Vanessa Sinclair. She watched the trio with narrowed eyes, her phone pressed to her ear. "Chuck, it's Vanessa. We may have a problem. It seems Ethan and his pet project are planning something big for the old neighborhood." "Yes. I think it's time we accelerated our plans. Meet me in an hour. We need to act fast." As Vanessa drove away, Leon, Maya, and Ethan continued down the street, unaware of the new challenges that lay ahead. The fight for the community was just beginning, and it would test not only their resolve, but the strength of their newfound alliance. Weeks of intense planning culminated in a crisp Saturday morning. The renovated community center buzzed with activity as volunteers hung banners, set up information booths, and arranged chairs for the upcoming presentation. Leon stood at the center of it all, clipboard in hand, directing the organized chaos with a mixture of nervousness and excitement. Maya approached, her face beaming with pride. "Can you believe it, Leon? We're actually doing this." Leon smiled, allowing himself a moment to take it all in. "It's amazing. I just hope people show up." As if on cue, the doors opened, and a steady stream of community members began to file in. There were familiar faces, the owners of the local bodega, teachers from the nearby school, families Leon had known his entire life. But there were also newcomers, attracted by the promise of change and opportunity. Ethan arrived shortly after, looking slightly out of place in his casual attire. He scanned the growing crowd with approval. "Impressive turnout, Leon. You should be proud." Leon nodded, still somewhat guarded in his interactions with Ethan, but appreciative nonetheless. "Thanks for being here. It means a lot to the community." As the hall filled to capacity, Leon made his way to the podium. The buzz of conversation died down as he cleared his throat, all eyes turning to him. "Good morning, everyone," Leon began, his voice steady despite his nerves. "Thank you all for coming. Many of you have known me my entire life. You've seen me grow up on these streets, facing the same challenges you all have." He paused, looking out at the sea of familiar faces. "Recently, I was given an incredible opportunity. At first, I thought it was just about improving my own life. But standing here today, I realize it's about so much more. It's about us, all of us, working together to build the community we deserve." As Leon outlined the plans for job training programs, small business support, and infrastructure improvements, he could see the crowd's reaction shifting from skepticism to cautious optimism. Questions came from all corners of the room. Practical concerns about implementation, worries about gentrification, hopes for specific programs. Leon, Maya, and Ethan took turns addressing the concerns, emphasizing community involvement at every step. The energy in the room was palpable, a mix of hope and determination. Towards the end of the session, an elderly woman stood up. Mrs. Rodriguez had been a fixture in the neighborhood for decades, her opinion respected by all. "Leon," she said, her her voice carrying across the now quiet room. "I've known you since you were knee-high to a grasshopper. I've seen a lot of people promise change over the years, only to disappear when things got tough. Why should we believe this time will be different?" A hush fell over the crowd as all eyes turned to Leon. He took a deep breath, stepping out from behind the podium to address Mrs. Rodriguez directly. "You're right to be skeptical, Mrs. Rodriguez. I can't promise that everything will be perfect or easy, but I can promise you this: I'm not going anywhere. This is my home, our home, and together, we're going to fight for it every single day." His words seemed to resonate, and Mrs. Rodriguez nodded slowly, a small smile crossing her face. "Well, mijo, that's a start. Count me in." As the event wound down, the mood was one of cautious optimism. People lingered, discussing ideas and signing up for various initiatives. Leon found himself surrounded by neighbors offering support and suggestions. However, not everyone shared in the positive atmosphere. In a corner of the room, Vanessa Sinclair observed the proceedings with a tight-lipped smile. She pulled out her phone, typing a quick message. Plan A failed. Time for Plan B. As the last of the attendees filed out, Leon, Maya, and Ethan gathered near the podium, exhausted but exhilarated. "We did it," Maya said, pulling her brother into a hug. "This is just the beginning." Ethan nodded in agreement. "You've taken the first step, Leon. But remember, there will be challenges ahead. Not everyone will be happy with the changes we're proposing." Leon's expression turned serious. "I know, but after today, I'm more convinced than ever that this is the right path. Whatever comes, we'll face it together, as a community." As they left the center, the setting sun cast long shadows across the neighborhood. The streets seemed different somehow, filled with a new sense of possibility. But as night fell, unseen forces were already moving against them, setting the stage for the challenges that lay ahead. Leon walked home, his mind racing with plans and possibilities, unaware that the true test of his resolve was yet to come. The success of the community event had not gone unnoticed by those with conflicting interests. In a dimly lit office across town, Chuck Baxter paced back and forth, his face contorted with frustration. Vanessa Sinclair sat calmly in a leather armchair, watching him with a mixture of amusement and impatience. "This is unacceptable," Chuck fumed. "Ethan's little charity project is gaining too much traction. If they succeed in revitalizing that neighborhood, the property values will skyrocket. Do you know how much money I've invested in keeping that area depressed?" Vanessa rolled her eyes. "Calm down, Chuck. All is not lost. In fact, this could work to our advantage." Chuck stopped pacing, eyeing Vanessa suspiciously. "What do you mean?" Vanessa leaned forward, a sly smile playing on her lips. "Think about it. The higher the hopes, the harder the fall. We just need to make sure that fall happens spectacularly." As Vanessa outlined her plan, Chuck's frown slowly transformed into a malicious grin. By the time she finished, he was nodding enthusiastically. "It's perfect," he said, "but we'll need to act fast. How soon can you get close to Leon?" Vanessa stood, smoothing her designer dress. "Leave that to me. I'll have him eating out of my hand within a week." Across town, oblivious to the machinations against him, Leon was burning the midnight oil in the community center. He sat surrounded by stacks of papers, poring over grant applications and project proposals. The initial excitement of the community event had given way to the hard work of turning plans into reality. A knock on the door startled him out of his concentration. Ethan stood in the doorway, holding 2 cups of coffee. "Thought you could use this," Ethan said, offering Leon a cup. "You've been at it for hours." Leon accepted the coffee gratefully. "Thanks. There's just so much to do. I want to make sure we get it right." Ethan sat down across from him. "You're doing great, Leon. But remember, you can't do it all alone. That's why we built a team. Leon nodded, rubbing his tired eyes. I know, it's just, I feel the weight of everyone's expectations. I can't let them down. Ethan's expression turned serious. Leon, there's something I need to warn you about. I've heard rumors that Chuck and Vanessa might be planning something. They stand to lose a lot if our project succeeds. Leon's brow furrowed. What kind of something? Ethan shook his head. I'm not sure of the details. Just be careful, especially around Vanessa. She can be very persuasive when she wants something. As if on cue, Leon's phone buzzed with a text message. It was from Vanessa. Leon, darling, I've been thinking about your project. I have some investors who might be interested. Lunch tomorrow? Leon showed the message to Ethan, whose frown deepened. See what I mean? Whatever you do, don't agree to anything without talking to me or your lawyers first. Leon nodded, a knot forming in his stomach. The path ahead suddenly seemed fraught with hidden dangers. The next day, Leon met Vanessa at an upscale restaurant. She was all smiles and charm, speaking enthusiastically about potential investors and expansion opportunities. Leon listened carefully, Ethan's warning echoing in his mind. It all sounds great, Vanessa, Leon said cautiously. But I'd need to discuss any major decisions with my team first. Vanessa's smile flickered for just a moment, before returning full force. Of course, darling. I wouldn't expect anything less. Take all the time you need. As Leon left the restaurant, he felt a mix of excitement and unease. The opportunities Vanessa presented were tempting, but something felt off. Unknown to Leon, as soon as he was out of sight, Vanessa's charming demeanor vanished. She pulled out her phone, dialing Chuck's number. Phase 1 complete, she reported. He's interested but cautious. Time to turn up the pressure. Chuck's voice came through, full of malicious glee. Excellent. I'll set the next part of our plan in motion. Soon, Leon and Ethan's little project will come crashing down, and we'll be there to pick up the pieces. As the sun set over the city, the various players in this unfolding drama retired to their respective corners. Leon, energized by the day's possibilities but nagged by doubt. Ethan, worried about the threats he couldn't fully see or understand. And in the shadows, Chuck and Vanessa, their conspiracy taking shape, ready to strike at the heart of Leon and Ethan's vision for the community. The stage was set for a confrontation that would test not only Leon's resolve, but the very foundations of the trust and hope that had been built in the wake of Ethan's unexpected gift. As the days passed, Leon found himself increasingly torn between the allure of Vanessa's promises and the nagging sense of unease they provoked. The pressure was mounting from all sides: the community's expectations, the complexities of the revitalization project, and the constant, subtle manipulations from Vanessa and Chuck. One evening, as Leon sat in his modest apartment, surrounded by project plans and budget spreadsheets, he received an unexpected call from Ethan. Leon, we need to talk. Ethan's voice was tense. Can you meet me at the park, our usual bench? 30 minutes later, Leon found Ethan already seated on the bench where their journey had begun. The older man's face was drawn with worry. What's going on, Ethan? Leon asked, taking a seat beside him. Ethan took a deep breath. I've uncovered some disturbing information. Chuck and Vanessa, they're planning to sabotage our project. Leon felt a chill run down his spine. How? What are they going to do? They're trying to manipulate you into making decisions that will undermine the community's trust, Ethan explained. Once that trust is broken, they plan to swoop in and buy up the properties at rock-bottom prices before the neighborhood can recover. Leon's mind raced, pieces falling into place. The too good-to-be-true offers, the constant pressure, the subtle digs at his capabilities. I can't believe I almost fell for it, he muttered. Ethan placed a hand on Leon's shoulder. You couldn't have known. Chuck and Vanessa are experts at manipulation. But now that we know, we can fight back." Leon nodded, a new determination settling over him. "You're right. But how? They have more resources, more connections than us." A smile tugged at the corner of Ethan's mouth. "That's where you're wrong, Leon. We have something they don't: the community's support. And each other." For the next few hours, Leon and Ethan sat on that bench, strategizing. They realized that their strength lay not in trying to outmaneuver Chuck and Vanessa at their own game, but in doubling down on transparency and community involvement. As dawn broke, they had a plan. Leon would call for an emergency community meeting, laying out everything, including the threats they faced. They would ask for the community's help in protecting the project, leveraging local knowledge and networks to counter Chuck and Vanessa's machinations. The next evening, the community center was packed. Leon stood before the crowd, his heart pounding, but his voice steady. "I called you all here because we're facing a threat," he began. "There are people who want to see our project fail, who want to take advantage of our community's vulnerability." A murmur ran through the crowd. Leon held up his hands. "But here's the thing. They underestimate us. They think we're weak because we're not wealthy or well-connected. But our strength isn't in money or power. It's in each other." As Leon outlined the situation and their plan to combat it, he saw determination replace fear in the eyes of his neighbors. People began to speak up, offering ideas, connections, and support. Mrs. Rodriguez stood up, her voice cutting through the chatter. "Leon, Ethan, you two brought hope back to this neighborhood. We won't let anyone take that away. Whatever you need, we're here." The meeting stretched late into the night, but by the end, they had a comprehensive strategy. Local business owners would be on the lookout for suspicious property inquiries. Community leaders would organize town halls to keep everyone informed. Tech-savvy youth volunteered to monitor social media for misinformation campaigns. As the last of the attendees filed out, Leon turned to Ethan, emotion thick in his voice. "I can't believe how everyone came together." Ethan smiled, a hint of moisture in his eyes. "That's the power of true community, Leon. It's something Chuck and Vanessa will never understand." Leon nodded, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. "We're really in this together now, aren't we?" "We always were," Ethan replied, extending his hand. "Partners?" Leon took Ethan's hand, but instead of shaking it, he pulled the older man into a hug. "Friends," he corrected. As they left the community center, the street was quiet, but far from empty. Neighbors lingered on stoops and sidewalks, talking in low, determined voices. There was a palpable sense of unity in the air, a shared resolve to protect what they were building together. Leon and Ethan walked side by side, their friendship solidified by the challenges they faced. They knew the road ahead would be difficult, but for the first time, they felt truly prepared to face whatever came their way. Little did they know, the biggest test of their newfound unity was just around the corner, as Chuck and Vanessa prepared to make their most daring move yet. The following weeks saw a flurry of activity in the neighborhood. Leon and Ethan, bolstered by the community's support, worked tirelessly to push their revitalization projects forward while staying vigilant against Chuck and Vanessa's potential sabotage attempts. The atmosphere was tense but determined, with every small victory feeling like a major triumph. As the date approached for the grand opening of the newly renovated community center, the crown jewel of their efforts, Leon found himself more anxious than ever. This event would be a turning point, a public declaration of the community's resilience and progress. On the morning of the event, Leon arrived early at the community center, his stomach in knots. He was surprised to find Maya already there, pacing nervously. "Maya, what's wrong?" Leon asked, concern etching his features. Maya turned to him, her eyes wide. "Leon, there's something you need to know. I've been keeping a secret from you." Before Maya could continue, they were interrupted by the arrival of Ethan, followed closely by a crowd of community members, all eager to help with the final preparations. The siblings exchanged a look, silently agreeing to continue their conversation later. As the morning progressed, the center filled with people. Local news crews set up their equipment, and a buzz of excitement filled the air. Leon stood at the podium, ready to give his opening speech, when a commotion at the back of the room caught his attention. Chuck Baxter burst through the doors, his face flushed with anger. "This ends now!" he shouted, brandishing a stack of papers. "I have proof that this entire project is a fraud." The room erupted into chaos. Community members shouted at Chuck, defending Leon and the project. Ethan stepped forward, trying to calm the situation. In the midst of the uproar, Leon noticed Vanessa slipping in, a satisfied smirk on her face. Just as Leon was about to address the crowd, a new voice cut through the noise, a voice he hadn't heard in years. "That's enough." The crowd parted, revealing a woman in her late 50s, her hair streaked with gray, but her posture proud and determined. Leon felt the blood drain from his face as he recognized her. "Mom," he whispered, his voice barely audible. Silence fell over the room as Leon's mother made her way to the front. She faced Chuck, her eyes blazing. "You want to talk about fraud, Mr. Baxter? Let's talk about the real fraud here." She turned to address the stunned crowd. "My name is Maria Alvarez. Years ago, I worked as a housekeeper for the Blackwood family. I witnessed firsthand the unethical business practices of both Chuck Baxter and Ethan Blackwood's father." Gasps and murmurs rippled through the audience. Leon's mind reeled, trying to process this unexpected turn of events. Maria continued, her voice strong. "I gathered evidence of their wrongdoings, intending to expose them. But before I could, I was framed for theft and forced to flee, leaving behind my children to protect them from retaliation." She turned to Leon, tears in her eyes. "I'm so sorry, mijo. I've been watching you from afar all these years, waiting for the right moment to come forward." The room was silent, everyone trying to absorb this shocking revelation. Ethan stepped forward, his face pale. "Is this true?" he asked Maria. Maria nodded. "Your father and Chuck were partners in more than just business, Ethan. But you were different. I've been watching you too, seeing how you've tried to make amends for your family's past." Chuck, seeing his plan unraveling, made a dash for the exit, but was blocked by community members. Vanessa, realizing she was now implicated, attempted to distance herself from Chuck. Leon, still reeling, found his voice. "But why come forward now?" Maria smiled sadly. "Because I saw history repeating itself. Chuck and Vanessa were using the same tactics your father used, Ethan. I couldn't let it happen again." As the implications of Maria's revelation sank in, the atmosphere in the room began to shift. The initial shock gave way to a sense of renewed purpose. Community members rallied around Leon and his mother, their support stronger than ever. Ethan, visibly shaken but resolute, addressed the crowd. "I can't change my family's past, but I can help make things right. Starting today, I'm transferring ownership of all the properties involved in this project to a community trust. This neighborhood will be run by and for its residents." The announcement was met with cheers and applause. Leon, overwhelmed by the day's events, found himself embraced by both his mother and sister. As he looked out at the crowd, at the faces of his neighbors, at Ethan's apologetic but determined expression, at Chuck and Vanessa being led away by local authorities, he realized that this was more than just a twist in their story. It was a new beginning. As the day wound down and the initial excitement settled, Leon sat with his mother, sister, and Ethan, beginning the long process of healing and understanding. The path ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear. The true strength of their community lay not in money or power, but in the bonds they had forged and the trust they had built. The revitalization project would continue, now with an even stronger foundation of transparency and community ownership. And as night fell over the neighborhood, there was a sense that this unexpected twist had not just exposed old wounds, but had also paved the way for true healing and progress. Leon looked around at the faces of those he loved, his long-lost mother, his steadfast sister, and Ethan, a friend who had become like family. He realized that the real wealth he had gained wasn't in his bank account, but in the connections he had made and the community he had helped build. As they left the community center, stepping out into a neighborhood that felt both familiar and new, Leon knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, as a family, as friends, and as a community united by something stronger than any conspiracy or secret: hope for a better future.